Okay, so California is a horrible state where if you aren't getting a whole lot of money, you're not getting a whole lot of love. You know, and then they don't appreciate a spiritual, humble man here, a truly spiritual man, because there's a lot of materialism, there's a lot of fakeness, a lot of shallowness, a lot of conformity, a lot of the traits of the New World Order here. Also, there's these New Age people. There's That's popular here, especially because of the major feminist and LGBT movements in California. And there's a lot of fake spirituality that occurs within those movements and that are associated with those movements. Um, so for me, I think probably on some level I'll forgive California and I'll forgive Californian women. But even if they weren't running psyops on me, I probably wouldn't be, associating with too many people, especially not females, because they're just so dead wrong. This is a very opportunist state. California is probably the most shallow and the most materialistic state. Now, when you think about it, let's look at it. A lot of places in the South, especially small towns, black towns, small towns with churches and stuff, right? Um, they have this kind of community. You ever heard the phrase soul food? Where does this come from? Does it come from California? No, it doesn't come from California. It comes from the South. You know, the blacks who are more spiritual, generally speaking, come from the South. You know, the states that are more spiritual, like it or not, in the midst of a lot of racism, and a lot of struggle, the deepest spirituality you find in America, which is not saying much, but it is saying something, is in the South. It's not in the North. It's not in California. But with this being said, there is also a lot of Satanism because of the Southern jurisdiction. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Pike and them, and his influence on Masonry and society. But when you're looking at just authentic, uncontrolled black Christians, and you'll find them in the South. In America, there aren't too many real Christians. And, I'm sure there's some Hispanic Christians who are real Christians. Probably more in the South than in California. I don't know how that goes. I do know that the Hispanics I've met in California, I wouldn't say are the most Christian people in the world, but, some of them are closer to it than others, The whites in California are very conformist. I mean, it's just, this state is just shallow. There's no way around it. And, I've been sad here for a long time, I'm so much more deep and spiritual than everyone else in this state. It's just insane. When you go to the South, for instance, you'll find these convicted old black ladies and older black men who are very spiritual, very convicted in their views, very determined. Here, just everyone compromises all spirituality. They accept fake spirituality from the New Age and these controlled opposition movements, such as the LGBT and the atheist movements to be found here, and the feminist movements, and even the satanic movements and occult movements that are, well known because of San Francisco and of Hollywood and Crowley and Pasadena and so on. San Diego with the cults there, and it's just. This is a very evil place. When you look at the Aryan Brotherhood, for instance, it was an alliance. The reason why they had, Irish bikers, neo-Nazi type people, and, Satanists. That's why they have the 666 to show the Satanist part of the alliance. And then they have the Nazi symbolism for the kind of neo-Nazi groups. And then they have the shamrock for the Irish bikers who, some of the founders of the Aryan Brotherhood. So, as much as I hate to use them as an example for a lot of this stuff, I feel like I talk about them too much. But they do prove my point very well with the satanic movements here. This is a very shallow state, a very materialistic state, very worldly people. If you make a lot of money, you know, and then you come to California, you'll be like, oh, there's beautiful women there, there's beaches, and it's fun, there's parties, and there's, nice weed and good drugs, and oh, California is the place to be. If you accept fake spirituality and new age spirituality, or you're some kind of second-rate Rasta or something, some kind of hand-me-down Rasta or something, trying to, you probably would like California, if you're a spiritual person, you would hate it here. You'd be like, well, what the hell am I doing here? You can go, like, say you go to Santa Cruz by the beach or something, right? There's people that see themselves as spiritual, but they simply aren't. They are New Agers, they're feminists, they're gays, they're hippies, they're just not spiritual. They're part of some group, some controlled group, some just superficial group, shallow group. It's just, when you're, inclined to be spiritual, when you're, when you feel this powerful connection, you're trying to connect to something deep and powerful, and supernatural even, it's just not going to happen here. It's like being in it's like loving the deep end of the pool and being in the shallow end. And you're like, I just don't like it here. It's just not deep enough. It's just a bunch of fucking kids, a bunch of young souls, a bunch of immature people that are just going through the motions, It's like they don't really believe. They're just fake, And I can't stand it here, man. I cannot stand it here. There's no really words to explain it, It's like I feel this deep connection with God, but when I look around and I go places, I see shallowness as far as the eye can see. I see a bunch of godless heathens, and just everywhere. And part of it is it's a liberal state, and liberals are adverse to Christianity, even those who claim to be Christian liberals. So at the end of the day, I'm suffocated here by the lack of deep air to breathe, so to speak. And I'm so miserable here. I've always been miserable here. That's always been my problem. I remember talking to people deeply, and they're just looking at me like I'm fucking crazy. Why is he talking about God? We don't talk about that type of thing, And I just cannot stand it, man. This fucking place. And even most people here who call themselves Christians, they just, it's a very superficial thing. It's like they go to church, they kind of, I don't know whether they pay attention or not, but it doesn't sink in for whatever reason, and they just go back to being a conformist. It's like during those hours at church, they're going through the motions of something because it's some kind of tradition in their family or something, generational thing. But then they go right back to being whatever, being a thug, being a fucking feminist, being a fucking whatever it is they are. It's California for you, man. It's just fake. It's just, Disneyland, Great America, marijuana clubs, Hollywood, San Francisco, Los Angeles, maybe some gang members in, Oakland, and there's a bunch of bourgeoisie and above, rich class motherfuckers in Palo Alto, Bel Air, San Francisco, Beverly Hills, Los Gatos, Saratoga, and places like this. Just these rich, just out of touch people, and these controlled groups, and then these police officers, powerful police officer groups, California Peace Officers Association, just shallowness everywhere, worldly people, gold digging whores, trendy, yuppie bitch shit. It's just like, where is the love to be found? Where's God to be found? It's just not there. Just, wow. And they twist everything, you know, just like Bob Marley. The people who like Bob Marley out here are a bunch of shallow new age sissies. You know, a bunch of fucking feminists who just don't understand that he was a Christian and don't want to admit to themselves. A bunch of gays who don't want to admit that his rainbow he was talking about, it has nothing to do with rainbow pride. And then they twist that, you know, just a bunch of just, you know, godless heathens everywhere. Just, it's California. So yeah, you know, I could go on and on about this, but you know, that is my belief in California. The reason why I have the tattoo is because it's where I'm from. Of the three tattoos that show where I'm from, there's only one that I'm really proud of. Well, really, there's four: the Biafra flag and the African drawing, and those are the ones I'm proud of. The ones that I am ashamed of, but I put there to, you know, remind me, um, you know, where I was born, and you know, my roots are really Africa and Biafra, but you know, where I was born was San Jose in California. But you know, this place, you know, it's just fake, man. I think if I could describe California in one word, it would be fake. And if I had a runner-up word, probably something like demonic or evil or materialistic, shallow. You know, I think those are some of the words I would use to describe it. The top five or so. You know.